What's going on, guys? Another episode of Calling in Favors. Just wanted to rant a little bit on golf, the PGA Tour, kind of what's going on in the game, some equipment stuff, and then, of course, we got to talk about the PGA Championship. But first, before we get to that, little voice crack there. Before we get to that, I want to talk about a couple things last week. Um, it's a little difficult to talk about a hole and strategy and kind of show you guys what I'm trying to sell while sitting here and ranting about it. While the pictures that I was able to add and the yardage books that I was talking about and showing can help, but I think a lot of you guys listening to most of these episodes are not watching the video. You're probably driving in your car on Apple or Spotify. One of the things that drove me up a wall when I was trying to do social media stuff is I'm a perfectionist, and it drives me up a wall when I have something to say and I can't say it and I get stuck and I stumble. And rather than just keep going, I get frustrated. And then a lot of times, by the time the message gets out, it's in an angry, aggressive, irritated voice, kind of like yesterday. And I don't regret what I did yesterday. I've been meaning to do that for a while now, kind of more of a health update. And yeah, I got on a rant, but that's because it was somebody that hadn't talked to me in years. And I know he's been on the other side of the coin, right? He's known as a groupie in local terms. And for him to reach out in agreement kind of pissed me off. And then when I was like, dude, I said that 8 years ago, and he's like, oh, it wasn't that. Yes, it was. Um, but back to last week's episode, that golf course is one of the perfect examples of why I'm in favor of bifurcation. I could care less what the amateurs do, and I could care less what the better amateurs are shooting, what numbers they're hitting, how long they hit the golf ball. That doesn't really matter to me. At the end of the day, you got to put the ball in the hole. And like I said, there's a lot of guys that are 5 and below that I'd take them down to that golf course at 5,000 to 5,500 yards, and 10 out of 10 times they're not breaking par. You know, after playing it a few times in a row and getting comfortable, yeah, by the 10th round, they may be playing well and shooting in the 60s, but a lot of them are going to go out, they're going to make 5 or 6 birdies, and they're going to make 2 or 3 others because they don't know strategy. And until you start to play golf backwards, right? How do I want to approach this green? How do I want to make sure big numbers are out of play? John, why do you care? Your short game's great. My short game's not as good as people think it is. I just leave myself easy chips all the time. When's the last time you saw me hitting a flop shot? I have it in the bag and I attempt it occasionally, but more often than not around the greens, the 60-degree wedge is the last club I'm pulling out of the bag. It's usually a 6-iron or an 8-iron, and then a lot of times if I'm coming out of the rough or have some rough to carry before I can let it run, it'll be a 50-degree, just a little kind of the same stroke as a putter, down on the back of the ball and just kind of popping it up in the air just long enough until I can get it to a place that's smooth and I can let it roll out from there. In one of the very first episodes that I did, I had some guests, and one of the guys, he's notorious for putting from 30 or 40 yards away. And that's fine. You're never going to hear me talk you out of that. If you're a bad wedge player, find ways to avoid putting a wedge in your hand. If you're a bad bunker player, find ways to avoid hitting in the bunkers. There's a lot of times that guys are just looking focused at the flag, not realizing 5 feet left, there's a slope that runs down into the bunker. And before you know it, you've had wedge in your hand and made 7. When all you had to do was hit it 6, 7 feet right of the flag and give yourself a good look at birdie. And instead you try to go right at it. You tug it a little bit. You hit that slope. You funnel into the bunker. You leave it there twice. And now you're struggling to get up and down for double and you make 7s. These are the things that aren't being taught because, like I said, and again, I don't mean to be negative all the time. And people think that I am, but as a golfer, you almost have to be because, I've talked about toxic positivity in the past, and it's we are set up to fail in golf. It's the way it is, right? Same thing in most sports. Baseball, if you hit 300, you are a Hall of Famer. And honestly, the way analytics and ignoring small ball is going on now, if you're a 300 hitter, you're a superstar now. Whereas back in the day, you had 40 or 50 guys a year breaking the 300 barrier, and now you got like 4 or 5. So it's not just golf, it's all sports, but it gets frustrating. Everybody questions the way I do things and how when I talk about this stuff, they say, "There's no way you're thinking about that on every shot. Why do you have a yardage book for Resi or New Bedford, a place we've played 100,000 times?" Because it gets me to stop and reminds me, hey, think about what we're doing. There's a lot of golf courses, and I'm going to show you one here where I have notes in the yardage books where if I'm going through the motions and I hit a bad shot, that's my fault. If I'm going through the motions and hit a good shot into trouble, I'm an idiot. It's little things like that, that the small major details that you're probably not thinking about shot in, shot out, that's what the yardage book reminds you of. You kind of just glance in there and it says, hey, don't go at that pin in the back. You're playing Rezio on the first hole, for example, or the fourth hole. The first hole that I walked you through yesterday. The toughest pin on that golf course is when the pin's in the back right corner, because you want to chase it back there and you want to get there and give yourself an opportunity at birdie. That's a birdie hole. It's one of those where most tournaments, especially net events, if you don't make a birdie on that hole, you're probably giving one back to the field. But like I said, if you challenge that pin in the back right, it funnels away from you and takes off, and missing back there, you can make a big number in a hurry. So that's more so than anything. These things are almost for the days that I'm playing good. Slow down. Think about what you're doing. Yes, I know you're feeling yourself right now, but don't hit that shot at that back pin. So that's kind of what I want to work with a lot of guys about. I don't care about your golf swing. Look at my golf swing. Yes, we're going to do a trick here, a feel there, or something to get you hitting it consistent. But unless you tell me, John, I'm taking a year, I'm going to not play golf, I'm going to go to the range every day, I'm going to pound golf balls, you're not going to change your golf swing consistently enough to play better golf. Yes, you may hit better shots. You're still going to have blow-up holes. That's where I can help. Use that benefit that you just learned from that teacher last week, that shot that you just learned, that little low trap wedge or whatever. Now this is how you implement it into the golf course. That's what I'm better at, and that's why I was better as a club fitter, because I looked at a lot of gray areas. I looked at how you struck the ball, what your flight was, what your landing angle was. Obviously, if a guy's hitting a 7-iron 185 to the moon with a landing angle of 55, I'm going to lean towards a lower side of spin, because you don't want that ball to just keep climbing, and then come out of the sky with a ton of spin, and now it's ripping back off green. So, listen, I'm not the fundamental build your golf swing guy. It's not who I ever wanted to be. Sit there in a bay with a guy for 2.5, 3 hours trying to fill a full bag, right? I wanted you to come in, get your irons. Let's figure out a baseline. Okay, now we get your irons set up. Okay, perfect. Come back. Where do you have gaps? Let's fill some hybrids, or now these guys are using 9 woods and stuff like that. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the episode. But, that was what I wanted to do. I never wanted to be the guy that sat there with you and said, we're going to build your game today. No, golf is a long-term process. And if you try to cut corners and you try to take shortcuts, you're going to lose. How many of you guys have gone to one of those in-store or studio indoor fittings and then got your product outside? And a lot of you aren't going to complain that it's bad. Some have been really vocal about how bad it was. But most of you are going to say, yeah, it's okay. It's not bad, but I just wish I hadn't spent the money on those upcharged shafts that you don't feel are doing anything for you. And now, I know you guys, if you've been following along, I'm not a huge My Golf Spy fan, but those are the things that they could really benefit the golfer for. And they're starting to scratch that surface, talking about OEM shafts and aftermarket shafts and how much they're going to benefit you. Well, I'm never going to do the testing. I'm not a math guy. I'm not ready to sit. I mean, I am a math guy, but I'm not a sit down and accumulate. I'm not a data guy was the word I was trying to say. I go off what I see. I'm an eye test guy. One of the things that a couple guys asked me last week after the episode, like I said, a lot of you guys are listening, so you didn't really see the pictures. What yardage books that I like to use, I used to draw my own. And now that you can just go buy one, it makes no sense. It saves the time and the aggravation. And plus, some of these green maps are better. Probably the one that I'm using the most often now is Strackline. It's called The Book. It's got good detail on the golf course. And if I'm not playing a place that I'm playing often, that I know, the whole stuff is important for me. It's what I can see. Is there a tree in the way? How much to that bunker? What's the carry numbers? If I'm not comfortable with a golf course, the green maps are what I really like. They're basic. Again, I'm trying to get this in here. You see how the arrows are big enough where I can see that quickly, right? I'm trying to get it so it's not moving. But that's why I like this one. It's got a good size green map and a lot of attention to detail for the golf course. The next one that I use, just as good. You see here, I've written some details in where I found sprinkle heads and 100-yard markers throughout playing the golf course. When you're out there and you're playing quick and you're trying to look and read a green and you can't really see the arrows, it makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of navigate on a golf course that and the guys are like, why is he looking like that? He's played this golf 1,000 times. I'm there to shoot the best number I can. I don't care what I look like. The first one that I ever got was Golf Logics. And the reason why I like this one the best, especially at a golf course that I know, is the hole details aren't great. Doesn't really talk about the slopes, doesn't really talk about the elevation changes and how it affects each shot, whereas the other two books do. But when I'm playing a golf course that I know really well and I play a lot, the green maps are the best for me. The arrows are big. You can open this real quick, and no matter where you are on the green, you look at it, you're like, okay, it's going this way, but I'm putting this way. Okay, boom, now I got it. You put it away, and it's not a pace of play issue. And I think that's the biggest misconception with aim point as well. If you're doing everything that you have to do while the other guys are putting, and now it's your turn to hit your putt, and all you're doing is standing to feel the slope a little more and kind of line your ball up, that doesn't take extra time. Anybody trying to blame pace of play on that is making an excuse for guys that play slow without just saying, dude, you are a human rain delay, pick up the pace. Charlie Hull last week, get in, the girl hit the shot. She hadn't even picked up their tee yet. Charlie Hull was already walking around there, putting the peg in the ground, stood over it, pulled the trigger, and everybody on social media is like, how refreshing is this? Couldn't agree with you more. I love watching people play golf that play like that. But on the other side of that spectrum, these people are playing for their livelihoods, and there's gonna be some demons that go through their head and some thoughts that aren't good. On the flip side of that coin is Danielle Kang. She used to be a fast player. Now she's kind of got the yips a little bit, and she's struggling. And people kind of Sergio with the regrip. Once you get in these habits, they build on you and they become mental more than physical, and they affect your game. So I'm glad to see Danielle Kang back qualifying for the U.S. Women's Open. I'm a fan of hers. Before Foreplay got famous, before they signed with TaylorMade and they became the PGA Tour's groupies, they were great at bringing on people that weren't as famous, that had quirks. They were different. They brought on a astronomer one time. They brought on Zalatoris's analytics guy one time, and they had Danielle Kang on a few times, and she's great. She's down to earth. She's MF this, and I don't care about that, and I get fined all the time. And she was an entertaining listen. So I'm pulling for her. It's good to see her back playing well. But again, it's just all about back what I'm saying. When people make fun of me about my quirks and my preferences and my pet peeves on the golf course, well, that's what it takes for me to play my best golf, for me not to worry about the other stuff, for me to just do me. I don't have a good golf swing. I really don't. I'm super flat. I get stuck inside. So I have to play for the miss a lot of the times. And I think a lot of golfers would really benefit by doing that. So, like I said, I just wanted to touch on last week's episode a little bit. For those of you that watched it, liked it, want more of it, reach out. I'm on social media, JLMade12. For those of you listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, leave a comment. Tell me if you want more. I can send it to you privately. I don't have to put it up in my social media or the podcast. Like I had said before, and I can go back and delete this if I'm repeating myself, but a lot of times with the social media, I would sit here and I'm a perfectionist. I would say something, I would stutter or stumble. And then by the time it came out, it was angry and I was down another road and I would get off topic a little bit. So I don't want to do that anymore. This is more of me and you guys having a conversation. And anybody that wants to come on and jump on, feel free, reach out. I'm more than happy to listen to you and have it out with you. For those people that disagree with me, even more. Come on, like if I'm disrespectful, tell me to fuck off and hang up. I get it. But I want to hear a lot of your sides. Yesterday, I got into it with some guys in the comment section about Aronimick, about how, Scotty Scheffler and Justin Thomas are all talking about trees and how important they are to the golf course. Yes, a strategic tree here or there is fine. What Gil Hance is talking about when he's deforesting golf courses are trees that are put up one after the other in line, almost as a fence. You don't want fences between 12 and 13 or whatever. I'm picking a random golf course and just kind of saying, it makes the holes play straight and boring, and it makes golf, I don't know the word that I'm looking for, right? It just makes golf monotonous, I guess is a good word. But the best thing that you can say to a golf course, Resi, right? For example, it's 5,000, 5,500 yards. But every time you're there, it plays different because the wind's different. The small subtleties between the front and the back 9 tees change it. And when the golf course gets slow and soft and tree line, balls are going to hit it and fall right down. You're going to have the same shot every day. It starts to get a little boring and a little monotonous. And so let's move on to the PGA Tour. Aronimick, it's one of those situations where like I said, I got into the conversation yesterday with some guys about Hance and deforesting golf courses. Well, I think Oakmont gives tree removal a bad name, and it gives everybody a knee-jerk reaction because they went in there and they took them all out, and it's not a tree to be seen from tree line to tree line, right? The surrounding area of the property. Most of the golf courses, Worcester, for example, Little Marion, he actually had some input on what trees they take down. They're not taking down the strategic trees that have been placed to make the whole play different, right? 14 at OS, for example, you got those tall, skinny, little nothing pines. They make the whole play completely different. Those will never come down. And if they do, I'm sure the guys at OS will do their best to replace them. There is a need for trees on a golf course. But when you have them like a row of Marines, one after another, all lined up at attention, they shade the rough. They shade parts of the fairway. They steal all the nutrients that are in the soil from the turf grass. A lot of golf courses that struggle to grow rough, all of a sudden they get a deforesting of trees, and now the rough is knee high and thick, and all the members are bitching the golf course is playing too hard. I, as a golf professional or greens chairman or golf chairman, would encourage members coming to me saying the golf course is playing too hard. All right, we can slow it down a little bit. It's a lot easier to go from firm, fast, and difficult to slow, soft, unhealthy. Now we're going to scalp it, and now you got to worry about losing it, right? You saw how easy it was. They just flipped the switch at Augusta, put a little water on it, didn't put the sub-air system on, and before you know it, Thursday was a massacre. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you saw guys starting to get at the golf course and starting to play a little bit. Not easy, easier. It's a lot easier to tone it down than it is to gear it up. So a place like Aronimick, they're going to have a lot less trees than what we're used to seeing. And how do they protect the golf course? They protect the golf course with tricky, firm, fast greens, thick rough, and then however many bunkers there are out there, which is a pretty cool story, right? You saw the interview I posted last week with Brad Klein, and I saw a different interview with Gil Hance about the renovations and how they got to the place that they are now. In the 30s, when Ross built it, there are clearly pictures on property of him standing in front of a bunch of little cluster bunkers and not one giant one through the years for maintenance practices and time and I guess, for lack of a better word, effort. They've blown out the areas in between a couple of those bunkers and made 4 bunkers 1. Well, that's not the intention of that property, and that's not what Donald Ross wanted. So Hance, I think, has done a great job to go back in and separate all those bunkers. Golf course looks amazing. I'm looking forward to watching these guys play. That's why the majors are so great, right? They play the best golf courses in the world. And yeah, occasionally you're going to get a dud. I know I'm hard on Quail Hollow. I don't think it's a bad golf course. Watching tour players play it, it's kind of boring on TV. And the fact that we see it every year, it's tough to watch it as a major as well. But, the thing that makes Augusta so great is they have unlimited property, and they've been able to keep that place every hole playing exactly the way it was intended to play, even with all the equipment advances. And if you don't think Thursday at Augusta was a shot at across the bow at the rollback, you're insane. Augusta's telling you right off the bat, if you don't roll it back and we start playing this slow, soft, boring golf, we're going to step in and you're going to not be able to stop balls on greens with a golf ball that doesn't spin. I think you're starting to see old golf push back a little bit, and you're starting to see the celebration of Aronimik. But that was the big disappointment at Bethpage Black last year at the Ryder Cup. Was it last year or the year before? I probably should have looked this up before I got on here, but they played Philly cricket, and Rory was saying, I found the way to play all these old golf courses, just to bomb it by the trouble and go from there. Well, how did that work out for him? The week before, at 7,800 yards at a boring, straight, flat TPC course, Scotty Scheffler was 30 under. And then at Philly Cricket Club at 6,900, it was like 14 or 15 under that one. So, length doesn't mean more difficult. I know I made the joke a couple of weeks ago on social media that I'd rather be at 185 to 200 standing there in the middle of the fairway with a hybrid in my hand than 170, 175 with a 6-iron in my hand, because I never had to hit those shots. Occasionally at Resi on the par 3s, if the wind was going the right way, or a second shot into the par 5, or if I hit a bad tee shot on a couple other holes, you'd have the occasional 5 or 6-iron in your hand, but for the most part, you didn't hit that. So I have a way that I play those clubs in my head. I will hit 1 or 2 more to be able to shoot it straight up in the air, play a 30-yard cut, because it's the only way I can stop it with a 5 or a 6-iron. Not because I can't hit those clubs straight, but because when I do hit those clubs straight, they come in low and burning. So I had to learn how to hit hybrids. For me, it was a challenge. I hated the first few that I tried. Learning how to hit those clubs, they don't spin, they don't curve, just hit it high, soft, and straight, has kind of helped my game. And I actually feel like I hit my hybrids better than I hit my mid irons, 5, 6, 7. You start to get to the 8 and down, and that's when I start to become a pretty good ball striker, because I get enough lift where I'm not having to manipulate the shot to be able to stop a ball in a firm green. That's what's so much fun about watching these majors at these old golf courses. You talk about the last few weeks, it's been Quail, it's been Doral, it's been European guys winning. Rory won the Masters, and Fitzpatrick, then the Fitzpatrick brothers. Now this kid Rattan, I had never even heard of him. I don't mean to badmouth him, but I had never heard of him. What my generation was really bad at was standing up to the younger generations in the PGA Tour and saying, fuck TPC courses, let's play good golf courses. Now, some of that obviously is money, and the fact that we've grown the game and all these golf courses have waiting lists, it's tougher and tougher and tougher to get these golf courses to host events. But the ones that would and the ones that were disappointed for losing events, it kind of sucks because now we got all these new golf courses, TPC style, that there's no history. We haven't seen, oh, so and so made 12 from there a couple years ago, or Jack kind of hit 3-wood close from there. And it's fun when you go back. It's going to be fun. We've already seen the pictures of the plaque where Corey Pavin hit the 3-wood or 4-wood at Shinnecock. This generation could care less about history. You know, you're talking to these guys about tree removal and golf course setup and classic architecture. And then the conversation kind of changes a little bit. These are the same type of kids that would get rid of Wrigley and Fenway rather than milk every last ounce of, usefulness that they can get out of them. They're like, tear it up and build a new one. No, like that's what makes baseball. You hear that Brad Pitt quote from Moneyball. It's hard to not be romantic about baseball because it's just 162 games every day, the same way they did it back in the 1900s. Nothing's changed about the game. The equipment really hasn't changed. It hasn't affected the way we play the game. Yes, a little bit with the shin pads and the arm guards and the earpiece. You guys are diving out over the plate a little bit more, but you still get the pitchers that have enough balls to buzz the tower. I wouldn't want to dig in and shit talk or pimp a home run if I hit it off Crochet. He's not afraid to buzz the tower. Pedro was notorious for it. You see the guys that are still hanging around baseball, Derek Jeter, David Ortiz, A-Rod. They're in all of these talk shows and ESPN and all these places where they are kind of checking these guys once in a while. Hey, we don't do that here. That's not the way we play the game. And I think golf did a bad job of it. And partly because we don't have a union, partly because there's no real networks. The Golf Channel, kind of golf groupie cheerleaders. They're never going to say anything negative. They're never going to go against the brand, which, I've been pretty clear about Randall Chambly going against Liv over and over again. Dude, keep your politics aside. Let's talk golf. I have nothing but respect for Brandel as a golf announcer. I just don't want to hear his politics every time he's on TV. But that's how we got to this place. You got Tigers in rehab, Phil is in exile, and all the other guys from that generation. Do you really want to hear what they have to say? There was an era in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, where European tour was kind of ruling the roost, and I think it's done a disservice to American golf. You don't have those past players that we look up to and we want to hear what they have to say. Yes, you have Smiley and Colt Knost and those guys, but none of the superstars are still talking and still available. I don't really know that we had any. I can think of a stretch where Lee Westwood, Luke Donald, that stretch with Tiger after the car accident in 2009 till 14 or 15 when the guys started, Justin Thomas, Spieth, and those guys started entering the chat. But for that stretch from 09 to 2015, it was all the Europeans, and it was pretty boring. And I think we're starting to see it now with the way golf is reported. It's nobody is on. You don't see Jack Nicklaus, and obviously Arnold Palmer has passed away, but they were still hosting events. Jack Nicklaus still has Memorial. Arnold Palmer had Bay Hill. Who coming up from mid 2005 to 2015 has the clout, I guess the word is, to host an event? Tiger Woods, he has the hero, but it's a limited field, which is kind of the trend lately, and he's nowhere to be found. So I think we got to a point, and again, I'm not going to go on a rant. I got into it a little bit yesterday with the antidepressant conversation, but we got to a point in society where you sat still and paid attention and listened, and if you didn't, you were labeled a problem, and they put you on medication. So now we have 150 tour players that are the same person, same golf swing, same style of play. There's no Chichi Rodriguez with the fucking sword, with the putter. There's no Lee Trevino with the quirky golf swing. It's all 120 of the same people. That's where I think golf has to get better. And I think the rollback, I think bifurcation, I think getting them to start playing in a stylistic way as opposed to long, straight, and far would create more interest. And you see that occasionally from week to week, and you see how much it changes. We'll see it this week at Aronimink. We see it every year at the Masters. We see it at the U.S. Open. Guys can't just get up and bomb and gouge. They have to think about what they're doing, and it's why we watch. It's why we watch so attentively. So, but I think golf is missing a whole generation of superstars hanging on. We'll never see the last walk across Swilken Bridge like we did with Jack and Arnie. We'll never see them walk across Hogan Bridge. We'll never see somebody do what Arnie did at Bay Hill when he hit driver off the deck and kind of chased it up on the green. I think society as a whole has kind of done golf a disservice. And then it's either one extreme or the next. It's either fucking complete hit and giggle or boring as can be. And I'm going to finish with this thought. For 30 years, we were told, grow the game, and all these problems would go away. We won't have to charge so much if we had a full tee sheet. The membership will be stronger if we grow the game. But now we grew the game. COVID helped us, but that wasn't the only thing. Like I said, I fit the guys from Barstool in 2018, and it was already kind of trending towards growing. What COVID did was allowed the fucking idiots in the Barstoolification to happen. You know, when I fit those guys, they were just trying to fit in. They were buttoned up. They were doing everything that they had to kind of fit the mold. Yeah, they bucked the system a little bit on the way that they reported, but they did it in a way that you kind of shake your head, but you'd be like, all right, I see their point. I see what they're getting. And then when their fans got in, that's when you started seeing guys getting run over by golf carts. These guys blasting music to the point where they're 3 holes over and you can hear it. Or if they're on the next hole and you yell 4, they can't hear that. So that's where I think we've kind of lost the plot a little bit. It's too extreme. And that's kind of what's happening because of social media, because of politics. Everything is one end of the spectrum or the other. You're seeing Spencer Pratt right now in LA starting to break that mold a little bit. He's not a Republican or a Democrat. He's just common sense. And I think that's what golf needs. We need a common sense guy to come in and say, hey, this is okay. It's not that bad. Let him do this. Guys, have some fucking common sense and some decency for everybody else. It starts at the top. They've been ranting and raving for 30 years about growing the game and how you can't afford to do things and everything would be less expensive. And now the tee sheets are full. Fucking Muni tracks that are in dog shit shape are $200 to play. And the private clubs that do it right, they all have waiting lists and initiation fees. And that's what keeps your dues low. Around here, the clubs look at initiation fees as barrier to entry, whereas the old private exclusive type clubs aren't as expensive as you think. The initiation fee is big, but once you're in, the dues are kind of right on par with everybody else, and they have that money that they can do things with on the golf course. We've talked about the club that I used to be a member at, charged $125 a month minimum, but nothing went to capital assessment. So if you take 25 of that a month and put it in a capital assessment fund that can only be touched to improve the golf course, you don't fall by the wayside, right? You don't get stuck doing a $4 million renovation that does nothing to improve the golf course, does nothing in terms of return on your investment, but all it does is tries to put Band-Aids on problems that you already had. And that's how golf courses kind of fall by the wayside and get passed over. But it comes down to cost, right? The prices kept raising, the conditions kept going down, and the guys that knew better left. The guys that don't kind of sit there and say, oh, in God we trust, and just kind of follow their lead. They bring in a bunch of discounted memberships. They get rid of the initiation fee, and guys come and go as they please. If you just drop $25K, or even if it's 10 grand over 5 years, an extra $2,500 a year on top of your membership for 5 years that goes straight into a capital improvement fund, but you don't get it back, that's the initiation fee. Guess what? If it's the difference of a couple $100 assessment or losing out on 10 grand, you're going to stay and you're going to pay the assessment. You know, in this week, watch Aronimik. You're going to see an old style golf club really show out. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. You're going to see these guys struggle a little bit. And the guys that are hitting it great are going to be able to play their high, far, straight, soft, as long as they hit the fairway. And they could go low. But that's what makes old golf so entertaining. And that's what makes what Rants and Klein and Core Crenshaw and all these new designers are trying to accomplish is give people options. You know, having one shot to hit the whole way around, yes, for the guy that's struggling to break 90, of course, that's golf to him. But to a guy that's a good player that wants to be able to hit some shots around the green, wants to hit the occasional flop shot off a tight lie, but also be able to hit a little bump and run up that hill as well, old school golf is where it's at. It's not monotonous, like I've said in the past. Drive, hit it with a laser, pull the club, hit the shot, get in the car, drive, hit the putt, get on the next tee, hit the driver, get in the car, drive, shoot the laser, pull the club, hit the shot. Gets fucking boring after a while. So that's what's so great about the old golf courses, Pinehurst being one of the best. It just gives you such a variety and so many options of shots to hit around the greens that it's as much as entertaining to play, it's entertaining to watch as well. So I'll be watching this week. I don't really know. I guess I'd say Cam Young is probably playing the best right now. I know Rory did a scouting trip, but he didn't play well at Quail, which is his golf course. He's one of those guys that he can flip a switch. He finds something on the range, and all of a sudden he's hitting at 380 dead straight down the middle, and he's tough to beat. I look for Scotty to be in the mix this week, and a surprise name that I'm going to go with, and just because it's short game and putting, is Justin Thomas. He played well at Quail last week, and he's creative around the greens. I like him at old style golf courses. And Spieth, I just don't think he's playing well enough to call him a favorite. But if he gets it going a little bit, this is the type of golf course where he can kind of use his short game around the greens and use his magic to stay in contention. So, yeah, so I really just said a whole bunch of guys, and it's easy to say Scotty, Rory, and the automatic. So my dark horse, I'm going to go with Justin Thomas this week. So, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it turns out. You know, keep the feedback coming, guys. If there's something that you want me to talk about, I'm that dude again, right? I'm not in a mold where I don't give a fuck. I'm not going to get frustrated when I sit here and try to make that perfect 1 minute clip and then it comes out angry because I fucked up. This is how I want to talk to you guys, you know, full on. Like I just did 47 minutes and it felt like 10. I think 30 minutes is the perfect length for an episode. Today I kind of rambled on a little bit, but we'll see if we can create some shortcuts in editing. But that's the other thing too. I'm not a big editor. If I said it, I meant it, and it stays. So yeah, I think you guys can tell I'm a little bit more composed now. I'm more myself. I'm more everybody's like, oh, John, what do you mean you don't care? You complain about everything, right? I don't give a fuck. I say what it is on my mind, and then I'm over it. If I come back and it's the same way, I'm gonna say it again. They called me a complainer up at the club I used to be a member at, and the only thing I complained about was the greens. And then as that got worse, the conditions. But, you know, you got these guys online, a board member yesterday complaining about cheating in a fucking opening day scramble on their Facebook page. So, but I'm the one that has the issue. Till next time, ladies and gentlemen, let's go.